Okay, good. Very, very early afternoon. Good lunchtime. I hope you're enjoying your lunch. And it looks like I'm live. So let's jump straight into the topic. Today, I want to talk about taking your weak point and making it your strong point, turning it into your strong point. I see this as one of the most efficient ways of learning the language, of learning anything really, but it can be a little intimidating. So let's have a look at why and how this whole method works. Before I dive in into the specifics, I want to invite you as well to a free transformational training that I'll be running at the end of the month. It's going to be January the 30th, and then February the 3rd, and February the 6th. So it's going to be a series of 3 masterclasses. I'm going to run all of them live this time, but there will be, of course, a recording for all participants in case you can't make it for that particular time slot. But the training is called Master Norwegian Fast, and it's going to be all live, as I said, with follow-up program in a closed group. And people really liked the training last time I ran it. I got so much nice feedback that I decided to upgrade and update everything and take the best from it, and also change the format so that I get to see you live 3 times. So I'm really excited for that. The link is in the event description. So go ahead and register for that. It's all for free, and I'm really looking forward to spending time with you. I'm also celebrating today because all my students who were heading for norskprøve passed the level they wanted, and some of them even got these surprise B2s in some of the skills. So I was like, yeah, so I'm popping a bottle of something good tonight. And I want to share it out there as well, that if you're looking at the March date, you still have time to take the prep program with me, even double spaced if you want. Some people prefer that. So let me know. Do contact me if you want that. All right, and now today's topic, taking your weak point and making it your strong point. I want to give you a little bit of background first, where I learned this idea, or where I first implemented it. It was one of my university professors back in the day in Czechia. I studied English and Norwegian, and we had this pronunciation class. It was a bit of a seminar it had like 2 parts. We had all the phonology and all the theory, and we had the practical seminar as well, where we did like nursery rhymes and fun stuff. I really like that. And she told us, in terms of pronunciation, but it's really applicable anywhere, when you want to improve, take your weakest point and turn it into your strong point. So literally figure out what you do the worst on in terms of pronunciation. In English or in Norwegian, this could be stress pattern, this could be linking, this could be pronouncing a concrete sound. For very many people, it's the linking and the reduction and pronouncing the sentences, right? It could be anything with the language in general. It could be the speaking. So in terms of, for example, the confidency. So you want to speak, but you always get too shy or whatever. All right, then this might be your weakest point, right? Meaning, if you take it and you work consistently on that, then it must improve, because whatever you use your energy on, and whatever you do systematically, and you get the right coaching and you really go for it, you will improve, right? Where your energy goes, there you see results. So very many people say that, oh, this is my weak point, and that's the way it is, right? And this idea that I got from this uni professor of mine is that, well, it's like that now. It doesn't have to be that way. So you identify it, you take it, and you work consistently on turning this particular thing into your strong point. Because just think, where would this leave you, right? If you really do that, then you will improve so much just on that one thing. Because the rest was kind of okay compared to this one thing that really sucked. And if you lift this thing that sucked above the rest, it's like, wow, all right, I progressed so much. I got rid of this boogeyman that I had there, right? And now, what's the next weakest point if you so desire, right? You have to finish at one point, probably. Well, you don't have to, but you can finish at one point. But I think this is a very efficient way to progress, because if you go like that, there is no beating around the bush, right? It's a bit like if you have a company and the company is losing money somewhere, you hire an analyst and you're like, so where is the biggest drain, right? We fix that first. And it should be same with your languages. Yeah. This thing kind of feeds into what I talked about once before, and that's the Pareto principle that I think most of you are familiar with, saying that 20% of your effort, if you target it well, if it's efficiently kind of chosen, will bring you 80% of your results. Learning languages, it's the same as anything else in your life. Learning Norwegian is the same as running a business, right? Or anything else. If you choose your efforts well, then 20% of your efforts will bring you 80% of your results. They will. And if you are able to identify your weakest point, the thing that's stopping you the most, the thing that's hindering you, you will get 80% of your results, right? So that's why it's so important. And also, part of these 80% of the results will be your self-esteem and also the feeling of relief. Because this thing that's your weakest point, that's kind of dragging you down energetically, and it's like unpleasant, and it's like, oh, every time I talk, this thing happens. Well, okay, that's good, you know it. Work on that thing, yeah? So very, very important. With the language in general, this might look a little difficult to see or to find what the weakest point is. But if you look at, for example, norskprøve, that's a topical thing today when the results are published for the winter round, it is more visible there because the goal is very concrete. You have to pass in these categories, and this is what it looks like. And you, for example, see that, okay, the listening and the reading, I already passed. Or when I do these exercises, preparing me for that, I do fine. So that's not my problem. But then when I, for example, when I speak alone, I go fine. My teacher says, this is okay, this is at the level. But when I speak with a partner, we run out of ideas and we're like, no, what should we say? It stresses us out. All right, you have found your weakest point for the exam, right? So work on that preferentially, devote more time to that than, for example, to doing listening exercises. And I'm the greatest fan of listening and listening exercises. I think you know that, of input in general. But when prepping for the exam, right, and you figured out that, okay, there is a weak point, it makes sense to not kind of hide in the comfort of doing more of those listening exercises or splitting it equally, like quarter. Now, you have to be working on this particular part of the speaking test. So you get yourself a partner or whatever, or ask your teacher to act like one, and you practice and you get your feet wet. So what I do with my students, for example, if I take this pair task as the example of the weak point, it's not the weak point for everybody, but if it is, what I do is I play the partner, and I'm a difficult one, or not a difficult partner, but not like a super supportive partner. So I'm like, yeah, okay. So I don't react that much. And we time it so that we have, the feeling of the stress and everything. And then we run into this unpleasant emotion that pops up, the awkward silence, which you don't want to have in an exam where you have 5 minutes to perform, right? And students are like, and I'm like, this is great because we are practicing this. Now let's learn to mitigate it, right? And when they learn to mitigate it and normalize it, it's like, good, I'm prepared. And that's a very important thing, that we didn't practice, or they didn't practice, like norskprøve stuff in general and devoting an equal amount of time to everything. No, they identified the actual weak point, or the point that was stressing them out the most, and they targeted their effort on that, right? And that gave 80% of the results, really, because if you need the B1 in speaking and then you fail because of the speaking test and your grammar was perfect because of the pair test, your grammar was perfect, but you didn't make the conversation happen, you get A2 in that one category that drags you down, right? Because the speaking test in norskprøve, they have 7 categories that they evaluate you on. Is it A2, is it B1? If you have A2 in one of them, it's not gonna be B1, right? So it doesn't matter that your grammar was polished and perfect. Your grammar was good enough before as well, right? But for example, the pair exercise wasn't good enough. So that's why it's very, very important to be strategic like that. Now, one thing with these weak points, what's difficult with it, I think there are two things that are difficult. One of them is that when we are supposed to do this, to do the thing that will move the needle, which is the thing that we fear and that we want to avoid, and so on and so forth, in Norwegian and in all our areas in our lives, it is out of your comfort zone, isn't it? So if, for example, you are kind of good at filling out these exercises in your workbook, it doesn't work for you, right? Like it helps you understand the grammar better and deeper. That's good. It helps you to gain some kind of input because you are reading sentences, you are reading examples. On the other hand, it's not very much. It's repetitive. It's all the same examples all the time, right? In all the textbooks. And it's not very real life, but it's some kind of input. So, okay, that's the positives. Then the negative is you are spending so much time filling out your workbook. And is it helping you to be a better speaker? Well, no, mostly, right? It might, for some people, this works. Some people have really good transfer skills and a good language aptitude. Most people don't have that. They have their gifts in other areas of their life. So for you to use this as a method to help you speak better, you would have to be like really talented, have a lot of transfer kind of aptitude for languages. For most people, it's like, good, I now really understand this thing. I could teach it to students, given that we would only do the exercises, right? I could correct it for them. But when I speak, it comes out wrong. And then we conclude that probably I need to do more of those exercises, and it's comfy because I'm good at filling them out, right? And I'm bad at speaking it correctly. And I'm a bit like, there is a mismatch, isn't there? Like your weakest point that you identified here, that's kind of stopping you or blocking you, hindering you from having these natural conversations in Norwegian, that is speaking correctly, isn't it? Or speaking naturally, speaking without thinking. And you can't practice that by filling in exercises. It doesn't work, right? But you're good at filling in exercises. So to stop filling in exercises, you would have to go out of your comfort zone and try something different. Yeah. For speaking correctly, actually, one of the best techniques is parroting. So you have the language that you know is correct, that you know is relevant. You have the thing that you want to say, and you practice saying it out loud with guidance if you can. That helps. That's direct practice for speaking better, right? But filling in exercises is comfy. It's familiar. You know it. And this is one of the big, I don't want to say disadvantages, but the big kind of problems or issues with doing the right thing, working on your weak point, because it's so uncomfortable, right? But I think you know this from the other areas of your life, like when you go to the gym, then doing the exercise you're already good at because your muscles are strong is like, let's do more, I'm strong here, right? But if you have a weak back and you just continue doing the arm muscles because you're already good at that, it's like, yeah, but your back is still weak and it hurts you because of that, because you overstrain yourself in your daily life. So you need to work on your back, right? Even though it's super uncomfy because the back is weak. Yeah. So it's a bit like that. Now the other thing that I wanted to get into today is that very many people don't know what their weak point actually is. Of course, we have like multiple weak points and we are learning it. So if we didn't have weak points, we wouldn't be learning anything. So I don't mean weak point in a derogatory way at all. Of course, I think that's clear. And we have multiple, but like, what's the strategic weak point that we should work on? Yeah. And how should we know? And by the way, I see a number of you are watching live. If you have any questions, you can put them in there. I can tackle the questions in the live session. That would be nice. If you have any, just don't be shy, put them in, or let me know where you are watching from. I'm interested in that. But let's now talk about this issue of not knowing what my weak point is, because students come to me And they say, like, I suck at everything, right? Have you ever said that about yourself? You can let me know about that as well. Like, if when you get frustrated with your Norwegian studies, do sometimes say, like, I'm really bad at this thing in general, like, I'm bad at everything. Very many people say this, and I get frustrated with that, with myself as well, because in other areas of my life, I sometimes do it. I'm not just like, I suck with technologies, I don't know what to do with this computer of mine. My partner gets near my computer and the computer magically fixes itself. And I'm just like, what did you do? And he's like, nothing. And, I have this idea about myself that I'm generally bad at that. On the other hand, there are a number of things that I'm able to get running, and if I focus on it and if I read the instruction properly, I'm no programmer or anything like that, right? I'm not a technical person, but I can manage quite a lot actually. And my weakest point is the anxiety around it actually, because when I get all anxious, then I don't read the instruction properly. Yeah, I give up before I start. And that's what I mean, is that we need to become realistic. We need to become descriptivists, and we need to have a look at, like, okay, what am I actually quite good at, and what am I not so good at? What's the strategic weak point that I take and I tackle it first, because it will help me out. It will make everything else easier. It will make me so much more confident, because I'll see that this is a possibility for me, right? So when you have this tendency to say, like, I'm bad at Norwegian in general, I'm bad at everything, stop there and be like, okay, if I'm bad at everything, then probably it's my identity that's talking. Like, this is my identity. I suck at Norwegian. This is my identity, that I'm a bad language learner. And a lot of people have it, like, I can't learn languages. I'm bad with languages. And I'm like, are you really? You speak English to me and it's not your first language. And they're like, yeah, but that's different. And I'm like, why? Because you succeeded, right? So do you see what I mean? When you say, I'm really bad at it and therefore I can't do it, it's like, that's your identity, right? You might not be winning the Nobel Prize anytime soon, and that's fine. You don't have to, you don't want to, right? But you can become decent. There is nothing in your way except for this identity that you're like, I can't do it because I'm not the kind of person. But maybe you are. Maybe you are the kind of person. Yeah. I always thought I could never run a live stream because I would die. And now people tell me, like, you run live streams all the way, all the day. And I like running live streams now. But the first one was tragic, I can tell you. But I had to change my identity around it. And very many of my students are like, I'm the shy person. And by the way, I'm going to run a live stream about shyness, being shy with speaking, because that's a chapter on its own. It's very interesting, and you can get out of that. But you know what I mean? If you say you're bad at everything, it's your identity talking, and it's a piece of your identity that you might want to change if you want to succeed with Norwegian and make your life easier. Because if your identity is like, I'm bad at it and I'm never gonna succeed, then we people, we have this thing called confirmation bias. We want to prove ourselves right even more than we want to succeed, and that really sucks. So if you say that you're bad at everything, make it your not make it your identity. That's the wrong way to put it, because it is your identity. You have to see it and shift it, right? It's not like you're making it. It kind of made itself. So if you're saying this or thinking this, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you want to be proven right, you see? And if somebody tells you, like, but maybe not, maybe you can make it, and you're like, no, I can't, no, I can't, no, I can't. And then you go and take norskprøve, and you might fail the level you wanted, and you're like, what happened? It's because I'm bad at it, because, right? So when somebody fails the level at norskprøve that they wanted in the speaking, what I tell them is, go call them, call your exam center, send them an email, multiple for that matter, because they are not so quick to respond and whatever. But you can get to them, and you are entitled to view your exam evaluation sheet from the speaking. And you see exactly which category it was that the examiners thought that you performed at A2 and not B1, for example. So people say, like, it was because I'm bad with languages. Identity, right? Problem. I'm bad at everything. No, you are not. You have strong points and you have weak points. And if you get your hands on this evaluation sheet, for example, you will see the crosses there. And they have 3 categories that are like you answered the question properly. Question 1, question 2, question 3. And then you have like grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, fluency, something like that, right? And you can view this sheet, by the way, on the website of Kompetanse Norge. And if you get this sent to you, they send a copy to you on email, and you see that actually I thought it was my grammar and my vocab, but those were fine. Those got evaluated as B1, so I'm actually fine there. What was the problem is that I got A2 in 2 of the communicative categories, as in like you didn't answer task 1 and task 3 properly. And then you're like, oh, I need to pay better attention to what the question is. And, and if you conclude that you are bad at everything, then you go there and you do the same thing again because you think like, I suck at grammar, that's why I didn't get the B1. But if you get analytical, you get realistic, you put your hands on your evaluation sheet and you see it was me answering the questions that got wrong, then you know what you should work with. That you should work, for example, with a teacher to react to the questions, make sure you understand, develop some strategies to double check what you're being asked about, and so on. So the work to be done is something completely different than what you would think it is. Like, I'm bad at everything, and that means I'm reading my textbook again, right? That wouldn't help you at all. All right, so what your weak point is very, very important to know. And by the way, I'm really inviting you to that free program I'm running at the end of the month. The link is in the description and I'll put it in the comment as well, because we'll be talking about stuff like that as well. Like, how do you identify your weak points? How do you get strategic about this feedback? In one of my courses where I give feedback to students, which is Speak Norwegian with Confidence, which by the way opens at the end of February. So if you want, you can drop me a note as well about that. I can send you more information. What I do is people hand in assignments, oral assignments on video. It's brutal, but it really works. And I give them feedback. I tell them what they do right, so that they know it, because most people are like, I'm bad at everything, right? And then I give them strategic feedback on the weakest points, right? Or not necessarily weakest, but like weak and at the same time important, right? The strategic ones. And then they work on it strategically. They let the rest on the side and they work on this, and they get better. And then they get so much self-confidence out of that. This is the way to go, right? Not like fixing everything at the same time. You can't. You don't have the capacity. It doesn't work at all. You have to take this one thing and work on it. For very many people, it's the pronunciation. I had a student, and I saw from her first video, I saw that it was very difficult for her to even like make peace with the Norwegian pronunciation. She would be a lot like, like it was evident that she was feeling embarrassed trying to attempt the pronunciation. And this could be like, number one, the sounds sound silly. There are a number of sounds like that in Norwegian. Number two, it could be like, I'm sure I'm doing this wrong and I don't want to come across that way, and I don't believe that I could fix it. Like, I'm not gonna attempt for real. And this is a real problem for the speaking, because number one, mentally and emotionally, it's dragging the student down. It's an energy drain. It's the reason why they stay silent and not say anything, right? And number two, it's difficult for the listener. Yeah, if somebody has problems with their pronunciation of this kind, then the listener is going to struggle to understand and also to make peace with the conversation. But it got fixed in like 3 weeks. It was like, boom, she's a rock star, But you have to know it. If you don't know that this is my weak point and you're like, I'm bad at it, I can't do it, then you're going to be just filling in those exercises because it's comfortable. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say about knowing your weak point. Yeah. Be a descriptivist. Don't get dragged into that pitfall of, I'm really bad at it and I can't do it, and that's why I failed, or that's why I'm failing at the task of speaking, right? It's not. There are things you do well, And if you get realistic, you will find out what they are. Or if you talk to a teacher who is skilled at evaluating such stuff, they will tell you what you do well. And there are things that you don't do that well that you can just let go for 2 more years and it's okay. And there are other things that you're not doing that well that if you fix them today, it will be your 80% of the results, right? So some of these are strategic. The things that we do wrong are not created equal. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have a look at your questions. So let's have a look at this one. I pass A2, can write and read well, but I can't get words when it comes to speaking. As you're emphasizing on practicing, that is the challenging part. Yes. And I'm gonna tell you, this is like this for very many people, that writing, it's good that you're good at writing, because for very many people, writing is the pain as well. But typically, reading goes the best for highly educated students. It's like, of course, you read it looks like English or like German, whatever else, you have time, you have your analytical skills, you can figure it out. So it's very typical that your reading skills would be at the top. So commonly, people struggle to pass B1 in speaking, and they are at B2 in reading. That's very, very normal, especially for the highly educated demographics. We read a lot, we rely on that, and you have the processing time there. And then listening, that depends. Sometimes people are good at it, sometimes they have blocks, like it goes fast, and if you panic internally, then it can ruin it for you. So there's a lot with listening techniques to be said as well. But I would say for the speaking, what helps me as a language learner, what I see helps my students, is to give yourself a break a little bit with that, and then go very, very heavy on listening. Very heavy on listening. Binge children's series, whatever it is. If you pass A2, then what I recommend, and this is very silly, but people almost call me like the Peppa Gris queen, but I really recommend the children's series Peppa Gris, Peppa Pig in English, right? It has brilliant Norwegian dubbing. One of my students used to say that Peppa Gris are best i bacon, so not everybody tolerates Peppa Gris, but if you can tolerate it, it's very, very comprehensible. The picture leads you. It's very kind of easy to follow. It has a lot of everyday vocabulary and expressions. You can just binge it. It's 5 minutes episode, so if you take like 45 minutes a day, right? And you're like la 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 la, and you start remembering the stuff without wanting to. It doesn't happen after 3 episodes, but after 15 or 30 episodes, it starts happening. And if you do like 2-3 seasons of Peppa Gris, you can graduate to something more exciting. For example, I use the teenage series Klassen with my students at lower levels. This is a series aimed at young teenagers, like maybe like 11, 12-year-olds. And that's why as well, like the plots are simple. You always know what's happening. It's comprehensible. So you can get a lot of understandable input, and you start figuring out what the words mean. And both of these have matching subtitles. So you binge and binge and binge and binge. You really go heavy on that. And after some time, you really realize that it starts ringing inside your head. Like you wake up at night and you're like, la 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 la, la, like a stupid line from Peppa Gris, And I don't want to ruin your sleep, but this is what you want, right? For the language, because then when you speak, you want to spit it out. You can't be standing there and putting sentences together like grammar plus vocabulary is speaking. No, it isn't. This works for writing, right? If you have a lot of time, you can build it up from words and grammar rules. Especially at A2 or B1 level, it's still possible. If you have to speak and react, you don't have the time and you don't have that multitasking capacity unless you really have like this great language learning aptitude. Not very many people have that. It's a niche talent. So it's like maybe a few percent of people, but all of us learned our first language just fine. And if you reflect on how kids learn to speak, it's like they listen, and then they repeat something out, right? And we can outperform them in reading like big time by years, right? In listening comprehension as well, potentially, but not in pronunciation and in this natural speaking. we can do the same as they do, but we have to work on it, because kids, they have very different conditions from us. They might have a little different setups in their brains as well. There's a lot of debate about that, about like the sensitive period and whatnot. But if you look at it, if you were put into a kindergarten and people treated you like the kindergartner there, you would learn in the same way as they, like there would be no other way, right? That's not to say that we want to be put in kindergarten for 4 years like our kids are, but you see, like the conditions that they are in are instrumental to picking it up, and we have to create that with, for example, the TV series or whatever. But really, this worked really, really well for me, for my students. You can also work with listening exercises, not like filling them out, even though that's good as well. But when you have filled it out, listen again, 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 and again. Figure out what it says, flood yourself with it, try to repeat it out. That's the parroting, yeah, mimicking the structure, the sentence pattern, the stress. And given some time, it will start sticking in your head, so that when then you wake up at midnight and you like, this is the thing that it said in the exercise. This used to happen a lot to me when I was teaching a lot of A1 courses in a language school many years back. And I used to play these listening exercises in class, and I knew all of them by heart. You can imagine. I didn't want to, but I did. And I literally woke up in the middle of the night, and I had this listening exercise playing in my head. So it's really bad for your sleep, but you see, you're on the right track. Maybe if you have kids, or if you're around kids and you know that they sometimes want to be read the same thing over and over again, and they learn the lines. And as you read it to them, rolling your eyes, you learn the lines as well, right? Without wanting to. That's picking up. That's called language acquisition, like that. And then you own it. Nobody can take it away from you. Not even you, even though you maybe want to. Yeah. So I really recommend this way. Yeah. But speaking is tough. It's true. Yeah. Let's take Brian. Let me see. Hello. I just want to know what really is a B1 level in Norwegian, and how will I know what level I am at the moment? Is there something like a questionnaire or anything where I can evaluate myself? Thank you. Yes, that's a good question. So these A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, this is the common European framework of reference, or CEFR. And this is something used a lot across Europe. It's the same as if you take Cambridge exams in English, like Cambridge First or Cambridge Advanced, or the Certificate of Proficiency in English. This is the same kind of scale. It should be the same criteria, even though in Norway there are some cultural specifics that are really weird and shouldn't really be there, if you ask me. So, like, for example, the B2 level gets a bit more academic in Norway. There's this connection with like B2 is academic level. No, it's not, but like it looks like that in Norway. But the B1 level, the A level, A1, A2, that's the lowest level. And that is some kind of basic beginner skills, right? B level is independent levels. So B1 is, you could frame it as emerging independent level. If you are at B1 level, then you are able to communicate or to function in the language in such a way that it works well in common situations, in like everyday life situations. And within your own field of expertise, you are kind of expected to have more vocabulary, more skills there, in a field of interest for yourself. And B2, then, that's like the fully independent level. That's the level that you would need to enter a Norwegian university, for example, or for example, a number of jobs in the health sector, where you really have to make sure that you make yourself understood properly, you understand what people tell you at a certain level, even professional. And then the C level, C1 and C2. C2 is native like proficiency, and C1 is like advanced level. That's basically like higher. In Norway, it's called higher academic level. For me, like C1 doesn't have to be anything academic. Some native speakers are at C1 level rather than C2, because C2 really requires very good command of the language. Some native speakers do not pass the C1 test in writing. That's so much said in English, for example. It depends on your education there. But so C is like the high levels that are more native like. B2 is the level that most people kind of want to arrive at as a full on LinkedIn, for example. You have these names for language skills, and B2 is what's called full professional proficiency on LinkedIn, and then B1 is called working professional proficiency. Yeah, so like that. Yeah, you can if you go to a website of basically any bigger language school, they will have something called a placement test that you can take that will place you into the right course, right? And that's something like you can use it as a marker of what your level potentially could be. On the other hand, sometimes these are heavily based on the progression in the textbooks that they use. So and heavily grammar based, which grammar in itself has nothing to do with language proficiency as such. So it's a very general kind of marker, but it is a marker of sorts. Or you can go to the website of Kompetanse Norge, which is the provider of Norskprøve, and they also have a placement test that you can use to give you an idea of like, okay, this is it. Or if you want, if you're considering norskprøve and maybe you want some help with it or whatever, you can contact me. I sometimes offer short calls for people to check their level before norskprøve, so that they can figure out if it's realistic to get ready for the B1 this run of the exam, or if they should wait and work on it for longer. Yeah, so that's also an opportunity. So I would say maybe the first go-to would be kompetansenorge.no and do the placement test that they have. Yeah. But if you read the newspapers, for example, you kind of understand what there is. It's going to be around B1 in reading, right? If you watch a teenage TV series and you kind of understand what they say, it's going to be B1. Yeah. If you can speak and make yourself understood so that people understand you, and you can speak flexibly about normal things, then it's probably going to be B1. Yeah. So depending. Yeah. Also, as I was saying in the first question, it's very, very common for, especially for educated adults, but for anybody, to have different, like to be differently strong in the different skills, because there are 4 skills being tested: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And it's very typical that you can be 2 levels higher in reading than in the rest. Yeah, or maybe in listening. Now I got the results from my students who were prepping with me for norskprøve, and they sent it to me in the morning, and I was like, yeah, I'm celebrating today. And some of them did get, like those who were taking the whole exam and not just the speaking, actually both of them, they got a higher result on reading and or listening. Yeah, and it's very typical that people do. Yeah, so it's nothing to be like, I'm hopeless with speaking, now you're just super good with reading and listening. It's very, very common to be uneven with these levels. Yeah, so I hope this answers the question. Let me know if you want to talk about it. You see, Andres is saying, brilliant suggestions, parroting and repeating after Peppa Gris. Yes, exactly. It sounds so silly, but really, like, very many people say like, I will do what it takes to learn to speak naturally. And I'm like, binge Peppa Gris all the seasons. And they're like, anything else? So people don't believe that this is gonna work, and they don't want to do it sometimes. And like, if you really have an allergy towards Peppa Gris, which I understand because it's very specific and some people really do, all right, we'll find something else. There are other series. The problem with many Norwegian series for children, especially if you access them through, for example, Disney Plus, or even some of them, some of those that are on TV2, or even some on NRK, but Disney Plus is like notorious for that. They have non-matching subtitles. It drives me crazy. The subtitles are even written in unnatural language. So it's like, let me see if I can reformulate this, even if it sounds unnatural. So I don't know why people do this. From the subtitling point of view, it has no benefit either, like making it short or whatever. It's not even that. So I don't know why, but Peppa Gris has matching subtitles, or like almost matching. So that's very good because it helps. And a good thing also is re-listening. If you are at a lower level, so it's like Peppa Gris is your thing at that point, even though it's good for B1s too, because it really has a lot of good vocabulary and formulations. But if you watch the series and then you go maybe a week after that, you have like this lag, and you start re-listening to it just on your way to work, just listening. If you have a TV series and just listen to it, of course, it's not as efficient as a podcast or something, because there is all this dead space where they are doing something on the picture, and they are not saying anything. But re-listening to old material works really well, because like I was saying, I think to Abdullah, I think I was saying it in that question, is that when you listen to something multiple times, it sticks in your head, and you want it stuck in your head so they can recycle it when you most need it, right? So re-listening to that is a suggestion as well. Like when you have watched it, make a week lag between maybe, and then re-listen or rewatch. But you can re-listen because it's really a different experience than with the picture. Yeah. All right. Thanks for the questions, guys. Those were really good. And I think I'm done here. And I'll see you next week for another episode of Tips for Confident Norwegian. And if you have any requested topics, you can let me know. I have a plan as well, so I will pick whatever fits the most. And remember to register for the free series of masterclasses, Master Norwegian Fast. We'll be speaking about all the blocks and all the distractors and all the things that we think we have to focus on, but actually they are making it worse. We'll speak about principles in language learning based on research and not beliefs of old teachers, right? And I'll also teach you some techniques. We'll talk about parroting in practice and stuff like that. So it's going to be very exciting. It's January the 30th, the first masterclass. The second one is on February the 3rd, and the third one is on February the 6th. And it's all free, and there will be a follow-up program, and there will be recordings of the masterclasses, of course. I will run them live on Google Meet in the afternoon so that you can ask your questions or whatever, so that it's after work for most people. But if you can't make it, there will be a recording for you to watch. All right, that's all of it. I think I said it all. Have a wonderful day. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, what time the masterclasses happen? Yeah, it's the dates that I said. I haven't set the date yet because I have some logistics around it that I have to figure out, but either 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that after work. And that will be the recording if somebody cannot make it. Okay, thanks for being here. Thanks for your questions. If you figure out any more questions after, just put them under. I'll have a look at them. And I'll see you next week. Have a good weekend when that shows up. Ha det så bra!